Ministry of External Affairs and the Commerce Ministry, they are all working towards getting out a mutually acceptable deal which will do minimum harm to India. Both sides are committed to a dialogue. You must understand that India is one of the few countries in which US is actively engaging on trade tariffs. President Trump has made it very evident that India will get cheaper energy. India will get the best of defense technology. You see, the point is that I'm not arguing like the Canadians are doing. That it's going to be a new relationship, this, that. No, we are saying very clearly that we are with the US and we are willing to negotiate and we are committed to negotiate. So that's what we are doing right now. PM talks about India first, he talks about America first, so that there are these two big players who are playing. It all depends on how good you can negotiate.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the Hindustan Times. I'm Abhishek Singh. Now, April 2nd is around the corner. That's the date when Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs will kick in. India, of course, is preparing the ground to deal with the consequences of reciprocal tariffs. To discuss what's happening in the background, I'm joined by my senior colleague, Mr. Shishir Gupta, Executive Editor, Hindustan Times. Thank you, sir, for taking the time and talking to us. Sir, you, of course, have been, involved in the sense that you have your ears on the ground, and you must have been hearing a lot as far as, whether it's the bilateral trade or whether the impact of reciprocal tariffs. So how is India at this point in time preparing for it? What are we doing?
Namaskar. Abhishek, right now, all eyes are focused on April 2nd. And the entire government, that is the Ministry of External Affairs and the Commerce Ministry, they are all working towards getting out a mutually acceptable deal which will do minimum harm to India when the reciprocal tariffs come in. So today is the last day of negotiations where US ATR, Brendan Lynch is there, and he's talking to our chief negotiator, Rajesh Agrawal. Then you have constant lines that are burning between Delhi and Washington at the apex level. You have the External Affairs Minister, you have the National Security Advisor, you have all people who are looking towards this. Now, to answer your question, are we going to have a deal? I can't answer that question but what I know is that something definitely is going to come out. Okay. Now, people can bicker about, this is what we expected and this what we got. But the fact remains is that both sides are committed to a dialogue. You must understand that India is one of the few countries in which US is actively engaging on trade tariffs. We have also made it very clear to them that we don't want to be what President Donald Trump calls as tariff kings. We are willing to cut down tariffs, but we also understand that there is a limit to which we can cut down tariffs and because there is a political repercussion of the entire thing. But the fact remains is that definitely something is going to come out, but the conversation is still not over. The wires will be continuously burned over this weekend also, and you may get something positive out of it. But to say that, India will get away, I am not too sure about it. And nobody is sure currently. So if you ask anybody in the government, are they sure? No, they are not. So it's still work in progress. But the way it is looking, and the other part is that, there is a lot of synergy between our Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyal, and our External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar, because both are not only colleagues but are also very close friends. So there are no ego issues. There is nothing in this government where everybody is on a different tangent. Everybody is working together, but I can't tell you the full outcome of it, but definitely something positive is coming out of it.
Okay. So on one hand, we are talking about, of course, reciprocal tariffs kicking in on April 2nd. Now, to lessen the impact, or perhaps not mitigate it entirely, but definitely lessen it, the bilateral trade talks are also happening. India and US have been talking about it over different presidencies. Hasn't happened yet. But this time around, India must definitely be hoping that happens, that India and US end up striking a bilateral trade deal.
See, the bilateral trade agreement has to be cleared by autumn, as was talked about when Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to Washington. So this is still work in progress, but it is working towards that.
Right.
You see, the point is that both sides realize that they need to have a bilateral trade agreement, right?
Yeah.
So because we've been talking to the British for a long time. It's still work in progress. EU, it's a continuous work in progress. So but the point is that, I think that we will have a bilateral trade agreement to, it may sort of, take some time, some delay, but definitely we are looking at autumn, and that is what both sides are working towards, because the engagement is very intense for the past month.
Right.
And this engagement is continuing. Everybody is working towards that. So once you realize that, this is the trade agreement is a key to having more closer bilateral ties, then you realize why the trade agreement is important.
Right.
And why the two sides, the two natural allies, the two democracies, why they need to be together.
Right. And, when we were discussing this, when we were talking about this, off camera, we talked about the fact that, some of these conversations which are happening are, with this mindset that there has to be some kind of cooperation, which is beneficial for both parties. Now, if Donald Trump's going to be very hung up on, no, I want this, and I want this, and gives nothing to India in return, I mean, of course, that's not going to be the way forward. And Donald Trump, knowing him, he's a businessman, so he's definitely looking for a deal. So the chances of a bilateral trade deal being signed, as you mentioned in the last interview that we did with you, was that could happen much before autumn.
You see, you could have an interim deal, but to have a full-fledged bilateral trade agreement, that is going to take the time, what has been sort of the timelines that have been set. But the fact remains is that, again, I come to the single point, is that, this one is a key to improving or cementing the bilateral ties. And we know that President Trump has made it very evident that India will get cheaper energy.
Yeah.
India will get the best of defense technology. So I see no reason why India should be shy of engaging US, and why Donald Trump should be, so aggressive on India. So I think when you decide that, you are willing to work with somebody, when you decide that, this person, you don't get any threat from the person, then you work towards an agreement. So I think this is where it is looking. But the point is, I can't still tell you that,
right.
Is it going to really come out that way? Is it going to be 100%? Is it going to be 70% or 60%? Yeah. But definitely something is happening.
Yeah. And also, interestingly, as you rightly mentioned, negotiations are going on, discussions are happening. But Modi government is known to be very tight-lipped. Nothing comes out before they actually want it to come out. They make the final announcement, but we saw it in case of, a lot of domestic policy announcements, where it was 370 or several other matters. And perhaps something similar is playing out right now, because there are none of those leaks out there which can give you a hint about what might be discussed behind those closed doors. But having said that, there is a Reuters story which came out, which we did talk about briefly. And that story is, of course, talking about the fact that India is looking at tariff cuts on more than half of US imports. Now, this is a very specific detail, and I'm sure, this is a source-based story. So at this point in time, we can't, talk about the veracity of it. Reuters has, of course, done this story. So having said that, is there any hint from any of the stakeholders that when it comes to tariffs, we're going to do it goods, one set of goods, another set of goods, or we're going to do like a blanket thing? Okay, fine, 10% tariffs, 5% tariffs out of exports from India. Is there anything along those lines which is out there at this point in time?
See, that first of all, the negotiations are still on.
Yeah.
I mean, today, again, the negotiations continue because, USTR Lynch is going to leave India later tonight or tomorrow, first of all. Second thing, the negotiations are very technical, very complex. They are down to detail. They're not blanket calls.
Right.
Okay, so so that is there. Third thing, that India has decided to cut, that is true. But how much of it is, I do not know. Right? But there is definitely a clear-cut indication that India has decided to cut on a whole lot of issues on tariff, right? To ensure that it gets the minimum hit on other things, right? But then there are places where India cannot do that for various reasons which can impact the agriculture sector and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. So, but the point is that to say that, Has it been done? No, it has not been done. But these are what you get out of it. Second thing, the negotiations are not complete. They're still on, and this will go over the weekend, possibly towards the end of Monday.
Okay.
Around Monday, we will be getting a clearer picture as to what is emerging out of it.
Right.
Now, the opposition may say, you didn't get this, you didn't get that. President Trump should actually be dancing, for India. But the fact remains is that this is going to be a very complex negotiation, and this will continue the way it is till such time, you have a clear-cut breakthrough as to what has come out of it.
Right.
So it's still work in progress.
Yeah.
Nothing final has been done.
So we have all seen how Donald Trump has dealt with Mexico, China, Canada. What gives you the confidence that India will perhaps be treated differently?
Abhishek, I'm not saying that India will have a special treatment or Donald Trump has sort of, a special love for India, despite his closeness to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But what I'm seeing is the engagement between the two sides. You had External Affairs Minister Jaishankar sitting on the front seat when he was sworn in as the US President. Then you had the visit of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, an intense, close visit with everything to be discussed. Then you had the visit of US Director National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Now, then you had this phase where this intense negotiations was going on the trade thing, which is continuing right now. Now, in the coming month, you have the visit of the US Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife, Usha Vance. Then you have the visit of US National Security Advisor. The Advanced Security Liaison has already been held.
Okay.
You have a visit of the US National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. Now, there is this talk that the two might come together. Now, all this only happens when you are some friends. You're not adversaries. Right. And when there is commonality, when there is intense engagement. So all this actually points that something good is going to come out. And that is why I'm positive about it.
Sure. So instead of getting into specifics, because of course those details are not available, at least not at this point in time, and we will talk about those details as and when they come out on, let's say, Wednesday in this case. So why don't we do one thing, sir? In your opinion, let's divide this last question of mine in two parts. Best case scenario and worst case scenario for India. What do you think those two situations could be? So first, let's talk about the worst case scenario. Let's get the bad news out of the way, and then let's talk about the best case scenario.
See, the fact is very clear that, reciprocal tariffs are going to kick in.
Yeah.
The fact is that India will get hit in some places. But
pharmaceutical, automotive.
Let me be very clear on this.
Sure.
When he decided to impose tariff on cars and components, the biggest hit was not India. The biggest hit was, countries like Mexico, countries like European Union, countries like South Korea, Japan.
Right.
We are only exporting automotive parts.
Right.
So if the hit was huge on these countries, we also got hit or collateral damage, part of the collateral damage. Similarly, when it will come to pharma, the next thing is going to be pharma. Let me be very clear. He is going to do increased tariffs globally. But India is a generic supplier.
Right.
The biggest hit will be on Ireland, which is doing about $25 billion worth of trade. So the point is that he's not targeting India. He is taking global decisions of which India may or may not be a collateral damage.
Right.
So to say that, nothing is going to happen and everything is going to hunky-dory, I'm not saying that. But I am saying that, there is nothing clearly that, actually he's decided to sort of, really hit at India. No, he's not doing that. So the point in this is that it is how smartly you can negotiate with him, how smartly you can get out of it, but you are committed to the. You see, the point is that I'm not arguing like the Canadians are doing.
Right.
There's going to be a new relationship, this, that. No, we are saying very clearly that we are with the US and we are willing to negotiate and we are committed to negotiate. So that's what we are doing right now. So I think, something good should come out of it. And but if you think that, everything is going to be, very good and we'll be out of it and everything, I don't think so. The point is, the two countries engaging and while PM talks about India first. He talks about America first, so that there are these two big players who are playing. It all depends on how good you can negotiate.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think on that, a lot of work is being done currently. So to say that, has it been done? No, it has not been done. But definitely, it's taking a positive momentum.
Right, and both these leaders, are realists. I mean, both are, as you said, trying to do the best for their countries. But on that note, I think we should definitely talk on perhaps Wednesday again about as and when these details are out and discuss those details threadbare, because the impact, of course, needs to be discussed once.
You see,
this
the
happens.
point in this is that, Abhishek, one part is the trade. So, right now, all eyes are on the trade thing. But there are other things that are also happening.
The overall bilateral
So
relationship.
listen, so as far as the bilateral relationship goes, if you look at it, you see, this month, only this week only, the first of the GE F404 engines for Tejas was supplied. In the remaining year, 12 more engines are going to come. A total of 99 engines are going to be supplied, which are going to sort of empower your Tejas fleet. So that has happened. There is already work on the F414 engines, which now HAL has to work with GE. And the two have to sort of make the engine in India. Right. Now, with Trump being there, Trump has made it very clear that why India, being a trusted partner, is not getting full technology. So we can look at a TOT which will be closer to sort of 80-90%, rather a TOT which is closer to 60%. So there is that part of it. Then there is this whole thing that Trump is very clear that, the energy prices have to be lowered. For India, it is the most important thing.
Right.
If energy prices are low, Indian growth is there high. So that is where it is. So there is obviously commonality of interest.
Yeah.
And then there is this business of, a trade deal. So, but to say that, the bilateral ties are sort of impacted by that currently, no. So the bilateral ties are good, but you have this elephant in the room which has to be tackled.
Right. And hopefully, this elephant, as you were mentioning, negotiations are currently on. And by Wednesday, we'll find out the final outcome. And that is when we will discuss the actual impact of it, because that is when we will understand how far and how widespread this is going to be. But on that note, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for taking the time and talking to us.
Thank you.